Welcome everybody to podcast number 7, and this is our March podcast from GPS Training. Welcome Andy, who's joining myself, John, for today's podcast.
Hello.
And we stream it again live on Facebook. So if you don't like our Facebook page, please go along and like our Facebook page, and you'll see us see what we look like for future podcasts. Some of this month's podcast has been pre-recorded, so if you are watching it on Facebook, you're going to have to download the podcast from your podcast provider. Otherwise, you won't see it in entirety. So without further ado, let's get on with today's podcasts. In today's podcast, we are going to look at the following. We have an interview with Mike Brockhurst, who runs the website The Walking Englishman. After our chat with Mike, we look at downloading the GPX route files from his site. Don't worry if that sounds like foreign language, it will all be explained. We have Andy's top tip, both SatMap and Garmin. And then finally, we'll look at Mad March, what's it all about. Our interview with Mike Brockhurst from The Walking Englishman. I recorded this interview with Mike last week and it exceeded all expectations. He's been on my radar for a little time now, but only after I interviewed him for the GPS Training podcast, I realised what a truly inspirational story he has. On this month's podcast, we've got a special guest, which is Mike Brockhurst, which runs a website called The Walking Englishman, and he also has a very strong Facebook page. I'm a big fan of what Mike has done, and again, with my background, initially started writing walking guides, I'm very jealous of he continues to do that. So, many thanks for taking the time to chat with us on the GPS Training podcast this month, Mike, and welcome aboard.
It's a pleasure, John. Thank you very much for inviting me.
No problem. Mike, you created the Walking Englishman website, the most visited free content website of walking in Great Britain. When did you start this website?
I started it about 1998-99,
right?
Probably around the turn of the millennium. I originally called it Walks in Northern England, and basically I started it just as a diary to keep a record of what I was up to.
Okay.
Nothing else. Just to keep. I just wanted something to do something that's quick and easy, and keep a record of what I've done in the past. Basically, to entertain me and entertain my friends who I go walking with as well.
Brilliant. So it was never meant as, I say, just a diary is how you originally thought it was going to be.
It's absolutely right, a diary. I mean, I've got written diaries from when I was at school, believe it or not. I've still got diaries from when I was a teenager, and I used to do my own pop charts.
Right.
So I know what I had as number one when somebody else had number ones. When there was a top 20, top 30, top of the pops was popular, I used to do my own version of the songs I liked. So I've always kept a diary, but it was in paper form, and I've just extended it beyond that.
And as an individual myself who started off with the internet in the late 90s, what a great place it was that time. It was superb, wasn't it? You know, there was just nerds like ourselves just playing around, wasn't it? It was exciting times.
I remember a friend. He just put a little website together just of notes, and he was a doctor, and he was putting doctor's notes and onto the web, 4 or 5 pages of very simple stuff. And I said, "How'd you do that? How'd you get your words onto the web and everything else?" So I went through the rigmarole of doing my first web pages. I went through the rigmarole of trying to get the dial-up connections and how to put HTML together. So he showed me how to do it, and from there I've self-taught myself, John.
Brilliant.
I've never been on a course. I've never used a WYSIWYG system, so to speak. What you see is what you get. I learned HTML from scratch. I bought books and I did it from scratch.
That's fantastic, isn't it? And how many visitors do you get on the website every day now then?
When I look on the website, I use Google Analytics. When I look on the website, it can be anything from 20 people to 50 people on actively all the time.
Oh, fantastic.
That breaks down to about between 10 and 20,000 a week.
Wow, brilliant. But that's quite humbling, really, when you think about how you all start, creating a website, uploading it. You see 50 people on at any time. It's quite...
Anytime. And not just from the UK as well. I get lots of inquiries from the States in particular, Australians, Europe, even Africa, even the Far East. I get inquiries. So it is humbling, as you say. It's I don't know how it's happened.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I've never pushed any advertising. I don't use advertising mediums such as any advertising, Google advertising or whatever. It's just from word of mouth and putting it out there.
Fantastic. And you're retired now, but when you started, you were still working, were you? Is that right?
Yes, yes. I've been retired 3 years now.
Right.
So I did it part-time at weekends.
Okay.
Basically on evenings and weekends, yeah.
You have a very understanding wife, do you then?
Yes, she is. She really is. She encourages me on my walking and everything else. There have been occasions when it's been a bit strained. In 2011, I did a big walk across Britain. It took me 4 months to do it.
Yeah.
I've called it the Great British Walk. It's a version of the jog, but it's my own version because I didn't want to do the boring bits.
Yes.
So I went from the northwest of Scotland rather than the northeast.
Yeah.
And when I did that walk, it was tough on my wife. I was away for 3 or 4 months. She was having to go back home, and she was having her own stresses with work at the time. So she's been a great rock for me. Yeah, she supports me really, really well on it.
It was brilliant that I looked at that walk because you started from Fairade Head, didn't you, rather than John O'Groats?
Yes. I originally was going to start from Cape Wrath Lighthouse.
Right.
It's such bad weather.
Okay.
I couldn't get to it.
All right.
So, yeah, in retrospect, I went up last year and did the Cape Wrath bit.
Right.
I haven't added that to the site yet, but yeah, I couldn't get across the ferry at Durness. People have got to. I don't think people realise that the northwest of Scotland is basically one big bog.
Yeah.
It's a huge bog. There are many lochs and lochans there. You can't walk in a straight line. You've got to go around where the water leads you in a way. And it also can be very wild. So I went up in at the end of May. I started at the end of May.
Right.
And May up there was still like winter here.
Yeah.
It was still like winter up there. And the ferry didn't run for 2 or 3 days. So I was just stuck. So I had the choice of either waiting or getting going from Durness, which I did.
Fantastic. And then that was so you were still working in 2011 when you did it, or were you retired?
Yeah. I took a sabbatical. I agreed with my boss. I was very lucky. I had a job which basically meant I worked with a team. I was head of innovation at an engineering company.
Okay.
So I basically put all my eggs in order, made sure all the contracts were working and all the projects were working.
Right.
I assigned people to each one, and basically was allowed to go off for 6 months. I did keep in touch with work while I was walking, but it was fortunate that such a job allowed me to do what I wanted to do. And
that was 1,000 miles in length that you did, wasn't it?
It was actually 1,120.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
And did you plan that? Of course, you planned the route before you went. You planned in where you wanted to be, did you?
I drew it up completely. What I wanted to do is link a lot of long distance paths together.
Yes.
And what I wanted to start with, when I looked at the book, I've got a book. I found a book in the library. I've got it here. I'll just get it out of the library. Hold on.
Our listeners can't see. I can see Mike on Skype here when I'm interviewing him. So he's now got up out his living room. He's going to his bookcase behind it, and he's going to come back with the book. So north to the Cape. Fantastic. A trek from Fort William.
Yeah. So basically, what inspired it was this book. It's called North of the Cape, and it's basically the Cape Wrath Trail.
Okay.
And the Cape Wrath Trail is it's an unpathed trail, so don't expect to find paths, don't expect to find signs, don't expect to find accommodation, don't expect to find anything.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a trail that's just been designed between Cape Wrath and Fort William, with a linear north to south or south to north, whichever way you want to go. They say it's the hardest long-distance trail in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
Believe me, it is.
Right, I was going to say, is it? Yes.
Believe me, it is. Yeah, 3 weeks it took me to do it. So that was only the start. Once I'd done that, I had another 1,000 miles to go.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
But in that 3 weeks, I camped a lot. I wild camping. I saw some marvellous sights that you'd never see anywhere else in the country because it is so wild, so remote. There are no roads there. Half of the paths end up. It's quite strange, but in northern Scotland, a lot of the paths end halfway up a mountain.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because what the farmers and crofters used to do, they used to take the stock halfway up the mountain, then let them roam the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
There's no point in farmers going over.
Yeah.
They just went halfway up, send the dogs up, bring the stock back, so that the paths don't go over the mountains. So you lead yourself halfway up. You've got to find yourself over the other side, and then find a path again halfway down the far side of it. It's quite.
And you don't have rights of way in Scotland the same that we do in England and Wales and other places, do we? You just have a right to roam, don't you? In such
Scotland, you can walk anywhere, you can camp anywhere, as long within reason. You can even walk over farmers' fields, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Walk straight through over the middle of a field. Obviously, with respect, you don't.
Yes.
As long as they have respect for each other, they close gates, they make access available. But yeah, basically it's one way you want to go. Can't where you want to. I met some really eccentric people. I met a guy who it was somewhere near Knocken Crag, and he was camping near a loch. How he was camping, he was in a little van. He had all his stuff, all his food and everything else, just in a little white man's van.
Yeah.
He works in Scotland all year in a forge, so he works in a factory. Making steel, processing steel, and everything else. And he says, I come away from my 2 weeks holiday, and I stay in his van by this lock.
Brilliant.
And watch nature.
Fantastic. That's the way to lead your life, isn't it?
Well, I don't think I could do it that way, but yeah, that's what he did. He just camped there, and he spent a fortnight there away from all the trials, tribulations, and all the stresses of city life.
So coming back to GPS training side of it and the GPS units, the key thing that has drawn me to you is actually on all your walks. I know you do a lot of day walks, and I know we'll talk about the long distance section on your website a little bit later, but you have .gpx files that you can download. Now, if people don't know what a GPX file or listen to the podcast is, this is the way we get information onto our GPS units, and then we can navigate along the walks. The fantastic thing about what Mike has done with his website, he's got these GPX files for is there thousands of walks, Mike? I don't know how many walks we got in total on the website.
There must be now. And everyone I've done myself. Yeah. So the route is the route that I've walked. It's not something drawn out of a book or anything else. I've walked the route. I followed the route. About 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago now, maybe 15 years ago, I got one of the first memory map GPSs, an Adventure of 4.8 or
4,800. Yeah. He's getting up again from his desk and he's off to get his GPS unit. So.
Well, I've bought me this.
Yeah, it's a 2,800 that one, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. I've used this one. It's the smaller one of the two. It's the very first one that Memory Map did, and that's been with me for 15 years now.
And do you still use that GPS to track your current walks? Do you?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I've got one on here. I've just plotted one on for it's not. I won't switch it on, but I've just plotted the next one I'm doing.
Wow.
So when I go, it's there, ready.
So that's what you do. You're switching that GPS on at the start of that day's walking, and then you're resetting your track, and then you're just walking that, and then you just download that track, as we would call it, and create a GPX file out of it, upload it to your website.
Absolutely, yeah.
The brilliant. Exactly. I've had a look over the last 24 hours at your website, and what a great resource. So this is why I kind of need to get in the podcast, because there's so many walks out there. A lot of our customers have got GPS units. There's a resource here with 1,000 walks on GPX files, and you can just download them, put them onto their GPS unit, whatever make of GPS unit they've got, and they will go on the walk that you've already walked. And there's text as well. There's text and pictures that inspire you and tell you a lot about it. So it's a fantastic resource. And when I was looking at those GPX files, I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you now, but they've been done properly. As you say, as Mike said, a lot of people just click on the computer and say, oh, I've created a GPX file, but I haven't actually walked the route. When Mike has walked all these routes. So it's an unbelievable resource. And so with your walking, how often do you get out every week, and how many miles do you cover, I'm going to say, in a week, in a year? Have you ever looked at those stats?
Well, in the summer more than the winter at the moment. Yeah. At the winter I tend to, I've got a real backlog of walks. I've still got about another 100 and 150. I've got, for example, I did a Welsh coast to coast. I walked from the North Wales to South Wales, following much of the Cambrian Way. a few years ago.
Right.
And then 2 years ago, I did Offa's Dyke.
Yes.
And last year, up your way, I did St Cuthbert's Way.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah.
I still haven't written them up yet. I haven't had the time to, because I've been for other walks since, and so I've got about another 100 to do. How far do I walk? I walk probably. I'll term it in days. I'll probably walk about 60 days a year.
Okay. And then does it take you 60 days to write it up, or longer? Or?
No, a bit longer, because I've got work to do as well on the website. I've basically got maintenance to do. I upgrade photographs from my old photographs to newer ones. I'll do a little bit of research and do some editing work as well. Mm-hmm. I also create data lists, such as people like it, the top 30 mountains in the Yorkshire Dales. I did a long time ago. People like to do that because they go and climb the top 30 hills. So yeah.
And when you're out walking, doing this, do you prefer to walk on your own, or have you got some friends that you walk with?
In the past it was friends. Now very much it's myself, because friends have dwindled away. I wouldn't say they've dwindled away as such. One of my friends has moved. Other friends have passed on. I still walk with my brother quite a lot, and a couple of other lads. And I also have a New Year's Day walk, and I walk with some friends from the Lake District. So yeah, there are people now and again, but I prefer to walk on my own. Yeah. To be honest. The reason is because I often walk away from the path I'm walking. I'll see something and I'll go off for it.
Right.
And if I'm walking with other people and say, "Oh, let's stick to the track. We want to do what we know we're doing and anything else." I'm a kind of an explorer.
Yes.
So I'll tend to, if I see something interesting a mile to my right or a mile to my left that's not on the track, I'll go and look.
Right.
That's what excites me. I've always been quite excited by just looking and finding.
And if you're with other people, it's a little bit, well, they don't want to do that, and we'll just wait here for you. You go and pop up there, Mike, and then you feel you can't do it to the same extent.
Well, a few times I've hopped off, and a few times I'll admit it. I've upset my friends and I've upset people by doing it, but it's just my nature. I just can't help it. Mm-hmm. I just can't help exploring and going off. So rather than cause any contention with some people, sometimes I go off by myself. If it's pre-arranged and I'm going with friends, I won't do it. Yeah. But that's why I choose to walk around quite a bit of time.
And then you mentioned your day tab on the website. We're talking about the day walks that are on there, and then you've got this long distance footpath directory. And all I can say is, wow. How long did that take you to collate and put together? I've never seen anything like it. You know, I just sat there and went, oh my word.
I just think we have the best network of long distance footpaths and national trails anywhere in the world. I mean, I've looked at other places where they've got them and everything else, but the range and the enthusiasm of people, walkers, creating their own routes, and organisations, societies, and local communities creating their own routes to benefit their own environment and everything else, I think is fantastic. And in this day and age, where we're getting lots of environmental stresses and environmental pressures, I think it's very, very important to continue to do so. So if I can help to promote them and show them and encourage people to do them, that's exactly what I'll do.
It's amazing. Now, you've got GPX files for them, so you've not walked all those walks. Did you create those GPX files on your computer, did you?
I've created the GPX off records. Yeah, those are not ones I've walked, obviously. But what I've used is I've used data from various sources. I've used data from basically books. I've read the routes, so that's how I find the information.
Because again, it's a fantastic resource. Now, if you're going to walk any long distance, I know it's not all a long distance trail in England or UK. It's there. I look through it, and there's some trails never even heard of, and you get so engrossed in these things. You kind of go in there and you're going to go, wow, where's that? And the GPX files are all there. And again, I know a lot of our listeners are looking for GPX files and think about doing a long distance trail, and they often ring us, but where can I find this GPX file? Well, this is a fantastic resource buried away. And it is phenomenal. No wonder you get the people on the website you do.
Absolutely, and it's meant to be. I mean, I'm a member of the Ramblers, and the Ramblers have a similar resource. But The Ramblers is you have to join, so you have to pay for the service to use it and everything else.
And then over recent years, you have ventured into the world of social networking, and you got a very popular Facebook page with over 6,000 likes. So how did you feel about going into that? Because it is quite traditional, your website and the way it looks, and then suddenly you're now in the world of Facebook. Did it something you jumped at, or you kind of trepidation?
No, it's something I was encouraged to do from my friends.
Right.
And I've also got a guest book, and people were writing the guest book saying, "Mike, you've got a Facebook page. We'll follow you on Facebook and everything else." So I thought, basically, I'd never even thought of it. I came late to Facebook.
Right.
It's only 5 years now. Mm-hmm. I was late to Facebook. I was late to Twitter. I was late to all kinds of social media. But I find it is a very good way of sharing information and also receiving information as well. I've been given some good tips from people, from followers on Facebook. For example, only yesterday I posted a picture I took from Blencathra of Great Melfell and Little Melfell, which are two of the Wainwright fells in his guide, and lots of people walk them and everything else. But I just find them. I've always found them uninspiring. The two little rounded hills on the extremities of the Lake District between Keswick and Penrith. Wainwright even said it shouldn't really be included in my books, but he said, well, they are, because the great viewpoints and everything else of various mountains. So I put on my Facebook blog, but I don't think I'll ever do them. And a couple of lads have come back to me and said, you should.
Right.
We designed a walk at the Great Melfell, Little Melfell, round with Galborough Fell, which is a lovely little fell that gives a great view of Ullswater. So I decided to do that route. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do the route that a couple of lads on Facebook have suggested I do, so I shall do them. So it's not just one-way feed, it's a two-way feed. I get good information back from it as well.
I logged on there last night. I'm going to say this, my little story. I logged on last night, and it tells you your friends that are already liking your Facebook page. And there was two great friends on there who when I started my business, which was Shepherd's Walks, before we took GPS training on, I walked with these two friends and walked long distance trails with them. And I've not seen them for a few years now, but they're two great friends. And I logged on, and they're the names, because they're still my friends on Facebook, as liking your page. And it did bring a tear to my eye, because I had some great memories of walking with those guys. And I thought it's really nice that they're following you and I'm following you, and we're kind of met again due to your great work that you're doing with the Walking Englishman. So yeah, it was nice, and so I thought, let you know that you are bringing. In my mind, I thought, I wonder how Paul's doing. I've not seen him for ages. You know, I walked Hayden's Wall with him. I've walked all around the lakes with him and this kind of thing. And it was nice to kind of to see his name, and brought back good memories.
Well, it's funny you say that, John, because a lot of the friends I walk with, I said I walk alone, but I also meet up with people on New Year's Day. The three people I meet up with New Year's Day every year, I've met them for the last 2 or 3 years, I met through Facebook.
Yeah.
Right? One of them, Tim, a guy called Tim, is a teacher in Kendal. I walk with him 2 or 3 times a year now. He first met me on the Great Beach Walk because he picked me up from when I first started doing social media on WordPress before Facebook, and then after Facebook, he's kept me with me on Facebook. Other friends on Facebook. When I walked Offord's Dyke, on 2 of the stages I walked on Offord's Dyke, people met me who lived in those areas in South Wales because of Facebook. Yeah. Similarly with a stage I did on the Ridgeway a few years back. Yeah. So it introduces you to people as well, and it's lovely. I've really enjoyed those encounters.
And it's really, I'm not just saying, I like the Facebook page is nice. Know that same ethos that you've got on your website is also reflects on your Facebook page. Good quality images, inspiring. Yeah. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just a guy who goes for a walk, and here's some pictures of it. And that it's a nice atmosphere to be in. So you got to commend you for that. And you see you do a little bit on Twitter, less on Twitter or not? Are you just...
basically... The reason is I just forget.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just too busy. I don't prefer Facebook to Twitter. Facebook can put a little story on and give information, rather than Twitter's a kind of immediate thing, isn't it? Well, what there at the moment. That's how I tend to treat them. So, if I did more on Twitter, I mean, I suppose I only go on Twitter about once a week, maybe once a fortnight. I just forget to do it.
Yeah.
It's not a case of preferring Facebook to Twitter.
Brilliant. So I know people have asked you this 1,000 times. Have you got a favourite walk? Is it going to be your length of Britain walk, or is it a day walk, or is there something in your walking life that you kind of think that was it?
It's so difficult. It's so difficult. I think every walk's a favourite walk for a moment of time, isn't it? People say to me, "What was my favourite part of the Great British Walk?" I could tell you 4 or 5 favourites today, and next week there'll be 4 or 5 different favourites.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm writing the story of Sharp Edge across last year, and I've referred to Crib Rock on Snowdonia, which basically people. I used to fear walking across edges, but now I can walk across them freely. I can stand on top and walk over without any fear if there's no wind or if conditions are good. So while other people were clinging to Crib Rock, I bounced across it, hopped across it like doing hopscotch in a schoolyard.
Yeah.
So that was basically, I could say at the moment, Crib Rock was my favourite, or Sharp Edge was my favourite. Tomorrow I might say that, one of my favourite mountains is Pen y Ghent. One of the first hills I went walking on was Pen y Ghent.
Yeah.
I love Ingleborough. I love the Brecon Beacons. I love the sharpness and lines of them. I do love Snowdonia. I'm a big fan of Snowdonia and of Wales in general. I'd love to do more in Scotland. I love Scottish West Island Way. How can anybody not like that? So it's difficult, John. I love the wildness of Northumberland and the area that you walk in. I love that, and I'd like to do more there.
You know, it's funny when you're saying about walks bring back memories. Just when you were going through those walks, I've walked many of them, and they just come back. Just memories are back there. You said Pen y Ghent. To me, Pen y Ghent. Now, I've been married 22 years now. Before I was married, I used to go with my dad every March to the Yorkshire Dales to go walking. I used to take my border collie, because I was a shepherd in those days, and my dad. And I did Pen y Ghent, and there was like 1.5 foot of snow. And like my dad now is he's well in his age. He can never even get up Pen y Ghent. And that's all those memories come back of like being in the caravan with the water off because it was freezing cold, and sleeping with the heater on all night, and then getting up and going up Pen y Ghent and Ingleborough and all those. So you're dead right. These walks, they're a memory for us, aren't they? I'm talking now, 25 years ago, and they're still you can still see them because of a mountain or a hill that you just mentioned. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Really.
Oh well, when I'm in the 60s now, I'm 62 soon, and I hope to be walking through the 10-20 years yet. I've just listened to an interview of Keith Richards the Rolling Stones are doing a new concert tour. He's 75 this year, so
you've got plenty more years in it then.
I still want to walk for years and years and years. But I was recalling in a walk I wrote yesterday, which one was I writing about? It was, I took my little granddaughter on a walk just around Bolton Abbey in Yorkshire. Yeah. And she's 30 months she did her first walk.
Yeah, I saw that one. It was good.
So I was recalling my first times I was mothering in the North York moors that my mum and dad used to take me and my brothers up on a weekend. Yeah. And we'd just play around Codbeck, and we'd just walk onto the moors, and in summer there was all the heather colour and everything else. And I was recalling that, and I was thinking, well, that's a favourite area as well. Yeah. I still remember those moments as being very, very special. I think favourite walk is a difficult concept because, as I said, it can change from one day to the next. And
as you walk, if you walk again, same walk again, it can be completely different because you're with different people, different memories, different weather.
Yes,
and therefore, what you think was the greatest walk ever, you go back and do it and you go, maybe it wasn't quite as good as I remember it. But actually, sometimes you're best to just keep the initial memories, aren't you? So just to finish up on the interview with Mike, where can listeners find out more about you, both online and on Facebook?
Facebook, Walking Englishman. Basically, just type Walking Englishman in and you will find me quite easily. The ranking on Google search, all the search engines are very good, so it shouldn't be difficult to find me. I'm also open to being contacted. I like to help people plan walks, plan walking holidays where they want to stay. I do quite a bit of that. I always respond to messages and try to help as best I can with advice. So you can contact me via the website, or I'll give you the email address now, admin@walkingenglishman.com. Simple as that. Just get in touch with me if you want to. I will help in any way I can in making your walking more fulfilling and more exciting.
And I would say to our listeners, give yourself plenty of time to look around his website, because actually it's not a website you're going to go in and spend 2 minutes and come back out again. You kind of you're going to explore there, and you just have plenty of time to use those drop down menus at the top. And you can only, this is what I said when I was talking about the long distance footpath direction. The others are tab at the top, long distance footpath. You bring it up and you're going to go, wow, that's like, there's so much work gone into it. So give yourself loads of time to look around it, and you won't be disappointed. Again, his Facebook page is brilliant, so well done for all that. So many thanks for joining me, Mike, on the GPS Training Podcast, and we're going to keep a keen eye on you. We'll put something in our newsletter as well, because I say it's a great resource for GPS users using the GPX file. So best of luck for your journeys onwards and upwards, and if anything comes up in the future that you think our listeners might enjoy listening to, please do let us know. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Yeah, and finally, John, please keep in touch. And next time I'm up at your way, why not we do a walk together? I really enjoy that.
Yeah, and that'd be brilliant. And what we do for the podcast as well, which I don't know if you see, we do some walks and talks. We go out and I walk, and we'll do recording the podcast then. So maybe you could join us on something like that.
Absolutely, that would be very nice.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you so much. Very much appreciated.
Nice to talk to you, audience, and all the best, everyone, and enjoy your walking. That's all I can say. Thank you very much.
So I hope that found that interesting. It's a really good interview, and we got lots out of it. So that nicely moves on, Andy, to the next thing, which is GPX files. We talked a little bit about it in the interview with Mike about the GPX files, what they are, and how we get them onto our units. So the first question, Andy, is what is a GPX file?
Well, the terminology GPX, it's a common format that's used in many GPS devices, if not all the ones that we use, and mapping software applications. The GPX file that you download from a website, it can include tracks, routes that you can then navigate with in your GPS device, or it could just be a series of waypoints. So this GPX file is something that we can get off the internet and use in our GPS device or in the mapping. And
is it compatible with any outdoor GPS device, Garmin, SatMap, Memory Map?
So all of the GPS devices that we sell will all work with this format called .gpx. So yeah, Garmin, SatMap, Memory Map. I'm sure there's other makes of GPS devices out there that will work to the same format, but we concentrate on the ones that we sell, which we know, the Garmin, SatMap and Memory Map, which are the three biggest brands. They'll all work with GPX files.
And when we're looking around the internet looking for these routes for our GPS units, are we always going to come across GPX files, or will we stumble across other things as well?
So most of the websites that you stumble across on the internet when you're looking for a route to follow or a track to follow on your GPS device, they tend to use the format GPX. But we've got a few other devices, I suppose, out there on the market now. One of the examples that I'd give you would be fitness watches. I'm wearing a nice Garmin watch today. The fitness watches tend to record the tracks that are recorded in them when you're out walking or cycling, tend to be a format called either .fit or .tcx. You could come across a format called .kml, which works in Google Earth. But when you're looking for a route or a track file from a website to go in your Garmin, SatMap, Memory Map, GPS, I would tend to look for .gpx, which you will find on most of these websites.
And I know we've just looked at the Walking Englishman website there. We've been hearing about Mike's story there. But there are other places, aren't there, that we can get these GPX files from?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of customers ask me about routes they're looking for, whether it be for this country or abroad, to put in their GPS device to follow. And they ask me, where do you find them? To be honest, a lot of the time it's just a search on the internet for the route you're looking for and using the terminology GPS route. But I mean, a couple of other websites that we found as examples, and again, are free, like the Walking Englishman, are free websites. There's no subscription. You don't pay for the routes. We use a one called walkhighlands.co.uk. If you're doing anything in Scotland, brilliant website.
And that's the one we feature on our online resources.
That's on the online training course, showing you how you get a file off that website. And also we use a website I come across before, gps-routes.co.uk, which is another good one. But you're always going to find new ones, like you found Walking Englishman, which is a brilliant website.
It's so funny, I often will just Google .gpx. I know I had to cycle the coast to coast last year, and I just Googled .gpx coast to coast, and some of the guys cycle that route, and he was sharing that as well. Yeah. So some people put GPS route, but other people put GPX as they understand that terminology, don't they? So then once we've got these GPX files, how do we get it from the website onto our GPS unit, both Garmin and SatMap?
So every website, oh, I'm saying every website, some websites will have their own instructions. Walking Englishman's very straightforward. What you're looking for on the Walking Englishman website, when you find from the guy's list of routes, the route that you want to do, he uses the terminology that it's the route GPX file, and you simply click on the Walking Englishman website where it says route GPX. You left click on that with your mouse, and automatically down to your downloads you'll find a .gpx file in your downloads. So in your downloads you can take that GPX file out. On the Walking Englishman website, I noticed when I downloaded some the other day, a lot of them are simply named as trackfile.gpx. Some of them are named as the actual walk, but as long as you just look in your downloads as soon as you've clicked on the route GPX. And then basically what we tend to do with that file, I would put it on the desktop of my computer so it's easy to find. Two ways you can get these onto your GPS device, just to give you a brief idea, but please look, our online training course that we have that you get free when you buy your unit office has lots of videos showing you how to do this. But you use this GPX file that you've downloaded onto your desktop of your computer, and in the Garmin world we use Garmin Basecamp software, and there's an option called File Import. You import the GPX file into the Basecamp software, and then the same as you would send your normal routes to your unit, you would send them. In the SatMap world, they have a software called SatSync that you use. It's got a little arrow down to say import a route to my software, and again you just use the SatSync software to import that GPX file, send it to your unit. And with the new Active 20 SatMap unit, you can just copy and paste these GPX files directly into the unit. But you'll find videos on our online training course, and we've got videos titled "How do you import third-party routes into your unit?" Watch those videos, and we're going into a lot more detail on how you do it.
So once we've got onto our unit, how can we check before we actually go off our walk that it's actually on our unit?
Yeah. So what I always recommend to customers, you've done all this hard work, you've been on a website like Walking Englishman, you've downloaded the GPX file to your computer, and then you've either used the SatMap, SatSync or Basecamp to send it to your unit. Don't just assume it's on your unit. It should be, but I'd always double check before you go on your walk the next day or a few days later. You unplug your unit. Now in a Garmin unit, we basically, all I'd get you to do is you use your Where To magnifying glass or the Where To icon on the push button Map 64. You've got the Find button, the normal button or icon that you use to find a route in your unit, and then just select either routes or tracks and search.
Because that's sometimes the complication, is when you download these GPX files, you don't know if it's a route or a track, do you? And that's what some people get mixed up with.
That's an interesting one. Just going back to Walking Englishman, the gentleman who's done this website, the bit that you click on to download, it's called the route GPX.
But it's a track.
But it's actually a track.
Yeah.
Now, I understand the terminology because all of us say, what's the walking route we're doing today?
Yeah.
But what the gentleman has done on Walking Englishman, most of these files you're downloading are actually recordings that he's done in his own GPS device.
Right, yeah.
So that's why we call it a track, because it's a recording of where he's walked.
Yeah.
So just be wary when you do import these GPX files into whatever software you're using and send them to your unit. I've had a lot of customers ring me and say, so in the Garmin unit they've used the Where To routes and thought, oh, the route's not there.
Yeah.
Use the Where To tracks and check that. In the SatMap unit, sorry, I didn't mention about the SatMap. The SatMap's actually quite straightforward, as in, doesn't matter whether you send it to the unit as a route or a track. If you're not sure if it is a route or a track, i.e. a route's something that you've pre-planned in software or someone's pre-planned on software, or a track that they've recorded. In the SatMap unit, if you go to your main menu and your routes menu and look at your different folders in there, that's where they should be. Whether it's a track or a route, they'll be in one of those folders. Just check you can see the name of that route, coast to coast, Cotswolds Way, whatever you've downloaded is actually in your unit before you go out the next day on your walk.
And then just when we've got those on a unit or even on Basecamp, is there any top tips, anything we need to just check with those GPX files, anything that somebody potentially could have done wrong that we can pick up on before we get there?
Yeah, I mean, what I always recommend with anything that you've downloaded from the internet, that ideally, I mean, customers often say to me, is there not a way I can just directly send it to me Garmin without using the Basecamp software? There is, but to be honest, look at our video. We show you how you import it in the Garmin software. One, you want to make sure that whatever you've downloaded is where you're expecting it to be. And what if someone on that website's made a mistake and they've said it's the coast to coast and it's the Pennine Way? So it means on your map software, I'm using Garmin as an example in a minute, in the Basecamp software, you can check that track or route, whatever you've downloaded. Also in the Garmin software, when you import these GPX files, when you're looking at it in the software, If it's a track, it'll have a little footprint symbol. If it's a route, it has a little symbol that looks like 3 boxes joined together. Now, one thing you have to be careful about with a Garmin, now, on the Walking Englishman site, I downloaded a load of his GPX files at random, and they were all fine. But you have a stipulation with a Garmin of how many points can be in what you download to work in the unit. And that stipulation is, if it turns out it is a route, so you're looking in the Garmin software, and it's the 3 boxes joined together, meaning it's a route, you've got to double click on it and look at the route properties and make sure it's got no more than what we call via points. That means whoever's planned it, every time they've clicked on the map page, it's got to be under 250 points for a Garmin, otherwise it won't work with your unit.
And we do find, that's what sometimes we find, especially with long distance trails, somebody sits there often with memory map, don't they, and spend a whole day just clicking across the whole of the coast to coast, for instance, and end up with 1,000 waypoints or via points.
It's too big to cope. Now,
work.
the nice thing is, again, going back to Walking Englishman, because
He's not done that,
that track recordings, now the difference in a Garmin, if it's a track recording you're sending to your unit, it can actually have on the older units up to 10,000 points if it's a track. Now, actually, with the latest Oregon 700, 750 series, it can have 20,000 points. So if you find whatever you've imported is a track and you double click on it and think, oh, there's 3,000 points, or, you know, a really large number, it doesn't matter if it's a track. It's just the routes you've got to be careful. If it is a route, it's got to be under 250. Now, SatMap don't put that stipulation on their units, but we do tend to try, if it is a route, to try and still send ones that have no more than 250 points. Otherwise, they can be a little bit slow to load in the unit.
Yeah, and I think it's just worth pointing out there, again, I can pick up there a bit, Paddy, you know, if you are downloading from various websites, if there is a problem or you're struggling to do it, get in touch with the website owner, because the website owners put them up there, they've got their maybe a little bit of system, how they're doing it. Get in touch with them and they'll be able to help you out. They might have a help file on their website helping you through that way. So thanks for clarifying that, Andy, about the GPX file, and it's very much appreciated. Next thing on today's podcast is Andy's top tips. So, Andy, the Garmin top tip first, please.
Yeah, my Garmin top tip for this week. I've had a lot of questions in the last couple of weeks of customers who are using the sort of newer generation Oregon 700, 750 or eTrex Touch units that have this function where when you start your walk, you flick up from the bottom of the map page and press start to start the recording. Now, the question I've had is, if you get the low battery warning on your unit and you need to change batteries, how do you make sure this track recording continues? So if you've got one of the newer generation eTrex Touch series or Oregon 700, 750 series, what you need to do is, if you get that warning that says low battery, we'd always recommend turning your unit off with the power button rather than just taking the battery straight out. Change your batteries, turn the unit back on. Now, the nice thing is it has what we call a non-volatile memory, meaning you don't lose your track recording data that you've just done. What you need to do is, when the unit's turned back on, if you were navigating a route or a track, just make that navigation shouldn't have stopped. But I always say the first screen you're going to go back to is the activity screen you were on, either hike, cycle, etc. Touch the little magnifying glass, and if it's still navigating to your track, it'll say navigating to. Now, I know you get the option to stop navigation, you would cancel that, so that means it's still navigating your route. If you then touch on the, say, the hike profile or the cycle profile, so you're on your map page, what you need to do is swipe up from the bottom of the screen where you press the start, right at the start of your walk, and what you'll find is it'll actually say start again. So it's basically saying you need to start your recording again. Unfortunately, it doesn't automatically restart. Now, what I normally do, so once I've turned the unit back on after putting the batteries in, check that it's still navigating the route, and I'm on the map page, when I swipe up from the bottom, if you look in the left-hand side of that screen that you swipe up where you've got the start, you've got the satellite bars, those little green bars. Make sure you've got the full satellite lock, and then just press the start again, and your recording automatically starts. With anyone who's got the older generation units, you know, likes of the Montanas, Oregon 600s, Map 64s, etc. The thing with they're automatically set when we send them out to always record. So when they come back on, they just start recording again. Hence, you don't have to.
Really summarise with a new GPS unit, Touch Oregon 700 range, is that we change the batteries, switch off the unit, change the battery, switch it back again. It should still be navigating the route to the track, but we need to press the start button
again, and then it'll just continue from where it left off, so you don't lose your track recording at the start.
So SatMap top tip, Andy, then?
Yeah. SatMap top tip is a real simple one, but it's something I've been asked a little bit about over the last few weeks. It's to do with the new Active 20 unit and charging it. I've had a few customers have queried me about it's taken a long time to charge. And when I've sort of got to the bottom of what the customer's doing, what I've found out, now I've done my own testing as well, with the Active 20, it has this really large 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which is great, but it does take a bit of charge. Now, what I found customers are doing is plugging in the plug charger you get with the SatMap, and they're leaving the unit turned on while it's charging. Now, I know sometimes you might want to do some work on your unit, so you'll do that, but we always recommend turn your unit off when it's charging. Otherwise, it's always looking for satellites and doing other things in the background, and it takes a long time to charge if you leave it on. Also, some customers I've noticed have plugged it into that computer, the USB port. Now, you will get a charge from your computer, but it's a very slow trickle charge. So I would recommend with the Active 20, you stick with using the mains plug that the device came with. And actually, I mean, if you want, you can turn the unit on to check. You can see the little charging bar in the top right of the screen, but I would always then turn your unit off and just leave it. I mean, I'll leave mine overnight, but potentially it can take 6 or 7 hours to fully charge.
Right.
Unit turned off, and then that'll charge a lot quicker on your Active 20.
So that's to summarise, Active 20, when charging it, no, switch off the unit, plug it in, use the mains, and it'd take 5-6 hours to charge.
Yeah, use the mains charger, yeah.
Brilliant. Next thing on the podcast this month is our Mad March offer from GPS Training. We've been running this, well, we're halfway through March, or we're getting halfway through. So the principle behind it is Easter traditionally is the start of the walking season. So in the lead up to Easter, we're doing a different offer every week. So this runs from Thursday to the Wednesday night. And so every Thursday morning, we're changing that offer, and you can see all the offers on our website. You actually are getting an email.
If you wanted to use the voucher for France, they give you 1,500 square kilometres of IGN mapping.
And I think, as you say on our website, it tells you how much of the countries now stay. You might be asking at this point, why is this Mad March offer just with Garmin GPS unit? The answer is because they're funding it. Let's be honest with you. We're Garmin's largest independent retailer here at GPS Training. So thankfully, they look after us. So we have a very good relationship with Garmin. So they come along and say, what can we help with? And so that's why they're funding this offer. But saying that, we've actually got quite a good relationship with SatMap over the last couple of months. We've managed to get some units off them for our trainers and things, haven't we? And I'm just dealing with them yesterday. They're actually going to sell our online resource as a referral program, which Andy's been working on.
We may have some. I mean, again, with other manufacturers, you may find we'll do offers in the future. We always talk to the manufacturers and see if there's any offers they can give us for our customers. So I suppose watch this space for other manufacturers.
So Garmin are funding this, and thank you very much for that. And hopefully you can take up the offer. So I know the podcast normally appears out on Monday, and so that's kind of halfway through the next week. So really, the Thursday afterwards, we change our offer. So we've got the eTrex Touch 25 with the silicon case. So eTrex 25 and 35, sorry, you get with the silicon case. What's the silicon case, Andy?
Yeah, so the next offer coming up for March is if you buy an eTrex Touch off us, we have a silicon case that's normally $10.99. We do them in 3 colours, red, blue, and a camouflage colour. It's basically just to protect from knocks and bumps on the side of your eTrex Touch unit. What I find as well, because it's a silicon material, it's quite grippy. It means you can actually, the unit when you're not wearing gloves, well, actually, even if you're wearing gloves, it grips a bit better in your hand, because rather than I suppose the plastic resin casing, you've got this silicon around it, so it feels quite nice and grippy in your hand. But it's just to protect the unit, not so much the screen, but just the edges of the unit and the casing from knocks and bumps.
It's a bit like your mobile phone. We all put our case on our mobile phone to protect the case. It's very similar.
So you get that free on. That's the next offer, the free silicon case with the eTrex Touch 25 or 35.
And you fancy waiting till next week to get the silicon case or something, get yourself all primed up and ready to take up that offer. So to finish off, podcast number 7. Many thanks for listening, and please do let us know if you'd like anything covered in the podcast. If you are looking for a new GPS unit or you want some training, again, just get in touch with ourselves here at GPS Training. Have a look at our physical courses and also our webinars. We do webinars Tuesday, Wednesday nights normally. Just go to gpstraining.co.uk and click on GPS Training courses. And please do tell your friends about the podcast and GPS Training. Don't forget, you can watch a recording of the podcast on our Facebook page, which is GPS Training UK, or on our YouTube channel, which is GPS Training. And don't forget to RST our podcast, which is rate our podcast on iTunes, subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to, and T is tell your friends about both GPS Training and the GPS Training podcast. Please help us spread the word and keep people informed. So many thanks, Andy, for joining me on this, the 7th episode of the GPS Training podcast.
Thank you.
And if you want us to cover anything in future podcasts, or you'd like to do any external interviews, just give us a shout here at GPS Training. Thanks for listening.